Good day, good day. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Your Kids podcast. Got a little glare on my glasses, but it's okay.
Yay.
Today I have Manisha with us. Introduce
Hi.
yourself.
Hi, Jay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Manisha, and I was a teacher for 20 years in public school, private school, all over the world, mostly in New York City. And I started to really get frustrated and appalled by the state of education system, both in elite private schools and in the public school system. And so I got interested in the homeschooling movement, and especially in Brooklyn, these groups of parents who were deciding to send their kids to homeschool co-ops and educate them on their own. And so I eventually started a marketplace for micro schools to help parents and teachers start schools, and that was Cottage Class. And my new company is Teach Your Kids, and it's focused on empowering any family who wants to play a bigger role in their children's education by connecting them with tutors and classes and free resources or support from child life specialists, whatever they need. And I'm having a grand old time. It's nice to be here.
That's awesome. That's 20 years in
Yeah, a long
public
time.
and private and all that. That's a lot. Do you have kids of your own?
It's a lot. No, I don't, sadly. It's still a big
Okay.
goal of mine, but
Oh, okay.
I I have many that I love from my many years of
Oh, I
teaching.
can imagine.
Mm.
I'm in Virginia right now, and I've been catching up with a lot of my former students. They're in their 20s now. And so it's been pretty cool to hang with them and go to lunch and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, they become your babies, and that's people don't understand how intimate it becomes. Like, as
It's
far
so
as your
intimate.
relationship with, like, you care, teachers care. They're big time present, well, want to be more present than they are able to be at times because of the workload. I could just
For
imagine
sure.
teaching in New York.
Oh, it's
Um,
intense. Yeah, I remember I would walk home because I was teaching at PS 29 in Brooklyn, and my heart
mm,
was just so full of love. It hurt. I mean, I was physically in pain almost all the time from
oh
just
man.
this connection to these children. And yeah, and it's so sweet. I mean, 3 years later, I remember I was in a restaurant. This little girl just came and walked right up to me, maybe one inch from my face, and just staring at me. She couldn't even talk, but she was just, it was kind of this feeling of awe seeing her teacher. It's just such a deep and intimate
I
connection that you
know
get to have
it.
as a teacher with children.
What grade level were you doing?
So I did everything. I was a substitute teacher in the bilingual schools for a while, so I jumped around a lot. Whatever they wanted me to teach, I teach, and I did private tutoring. And I had a long stint as a music teacher at PS 29, where I did
Nice.
pre-K through fifth grade. So that was a really sweet
Oh,
time.
that's
But
amazing. And
yeah, I
so
love
then
them
it
all.
it caused you to say, hey, we need some changes.
For
we need
sure.
we need some other things.
For
Yes.
sure. And I think a lot about the future for our children and climate change. And I mean, just the institutionalized racism in school and human rights. And I really want to make a difference because I love kids. And I feel like education is the way. If you want to cure any problem, it starts with giving equal access to education. And that starts with parents and helping them educate their kids.
Yes, ma'am. I love that. I love how you put that. Yes, it definitely starts with parents. And, we put big emphasis on the involvement of parents in their children's education, no matter the placement of the child, whether they're at home or in private or public or micro. It's just parents have to be involved for it to work.
Absolutely. And I will say, I've had some incidents recently where people have said, what business do you have talking about homeschooling, not being a homeschooling parent yourself? And I've thought a lot about that. I mean, and clearly I know some teaching strategies and curriculum and whatnot, but I think the biggest thing I learned as a teacher is that parents do know best. And so much of education is focused on disempowering parents. So much of the way the school is built is around telling parents they don't know best and the system knows best. And what I learned from teaching hundreds and hundreds of kids and meeting their parents was that That's actually not true. Parents really do know best. They're the first ones to know what's going on and how to help their kids.
Yes, ma'am. And that's the experience that you need. Like, you don't have to birth children to know that there's something wrong with the school system. Like, you don't have
Just step
to.
inside. You'll have a
Please,
grand
look,
old
look,
time.
please, yes,
Yeah.
if anything, because there's plenty of people with kids who are have no fathom idea of all of the intricate workings of a system in general. But just understanding how like the schools, like think about all the years. That's my thing. It's the
Mm,
years that's a child spends in a system of that sort. And it's not a fulfill, it doesn't make them thrive. It doesn't cause them
no, not at all. Some do
some,
fine.
but that number is not, it doesn't outweigh the ones that do not. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there was an investor, Mark Andreessen, who said that one of the things that happened during the pandemic is that parents got a glimpse of what school was actually like, and they had never set foot in a classroom before, so they just didn't
mhm.
know. And that they realized, oh wow, school is quite different now than when it was when I went to school, for
Yes,
one.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, Teacher Kids Network. Is it network?
Yes.
Is it like a network?
Yeah, we're a community, and it's a community with extra support. So when families join, they can for us to match them with tutors. They can ask to have us match them with friends in their area, if they're looking for
Nice.
friendship, or they can ask for support because there's all these moments when you might feel burnt out, or perhaps your child is acting violently, or
Mm,
you feel like you're not being a good parent and you're not qualified to homeschool, or you don't know how to see if your child is on track, whatever that means. And so we have certified child life specialists and educators who can just be there. And it sounds like a lot, but one of the things is that we really do just give free access to anyone who needs it on a trust basis. I also have a nonprofit that does free tutoring, so it's meant to be accessible to everyone, and those who can pay and help the community grow can do that, and those who can't afford it, they just send me an email. I don't ask questions about proof of income or anything, so it's really designed to be accessible to everyone.
that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Are you familiar with Vela? Have you?
Yes, we are a grant
Okay, cool.
recipient. I thought you might be in the community.
Yeah, I
Yes.
am. I am. We are
Yes.
to a grant recipient, so that's
Yeah.
that's beautiful because I just wanted to make sure if you didn't know, definitely
Yes,
tap into
and
them.
Vela is very responsible for helping me keep this work going because not a lot of
Nice.
people understand homeschooling and how important it is to empower parents and explore new forms, but Vela really gets it.
And you're providing what's needed, like support. That's
Exactly.
the main thing. Cause people get into the mindset of homeschool and they think like it's something like it's just solo dolo and you just in the house with your kid and
Right.
nothing is out. I was just on a debate and it was it was titled a debate about public school versus homeschool on Clubhouse. I don't venture up there too often, but I
Oh,
try to because
I need
I
to
like
check that one out,
yeah, I
right?
like listening to the conversation. And the guy who was hosting it, he was a public school teacher. I think he'd been teaching for over 20 years or so, but he spoke on the side of public school, and then he had a young lady who spoke on the side of homeschool. And it was pretty cool, but it was just interesting listening to the perspectives on homeschool because it's like
Right.
one girl even had to put in the chat, it's like, we're not sitting around writing on stones. Like we have a bunch of resources. Um,
Exactly.
and that's awesome that you are there to provide those resources because there's a lot of times that parents don't know where to look. So, and that's what it's all about.
For
Being
sure. Yeah. And I know that you're a teacher as well. So, one of the things I've been able to do, partially because I don't have children of my own, I have extra time, is
yes.
I've been able to really go through almost every single homeschooling resource available. And
Mm,
I know it can be challenging if you're trying to find secular materials. I'm not opposed to using religious materials, but it can just be more difficult if you want to teach your children about evolution and science and climate change and have inclusive materials, history that's actually a full look at history, not one person's history. And so I've
mm,
really done the work of diving through all those materials and looking at different children's archetypes, autism, for example, gifted and profoundly gifted, and what types of resources work best for each child. So I think that can be supportive. But the main thing I feel is confidence. I mean, as a teacher, I feel like I could homeschool my kid, no problem. But a lot of people who aren't teachers have so much fear that they're not qualified to do that. And so I feel like that's the biggest thing. And that's my mission, because we really have to switch that paradigm. And
Yes,
when you start
ma'am.
thinking about it, it doesn't even make sense. I mean, why wouldn't a parent teach their own kids? It's just like, I mean, that's
Because they're not qualified,
billions
like
and
you said.
billions of years of evolution have made parents capable of raising their young. I mean, parents teach their kids how to go to the potty, children learn how to speak from their parents, and
Tie their
especially,
shoes, eat properly,
yeah,
use manners. The list goes on, like brush your teeth, put their clothes on. Like, and
so
I've
many
ran down these
things,
lists at
right?
playgrounds when I talk to parents, like, yo, you do understand you've already been doing it. And it's like a light bulb shines like,
Right? Exactly.
hey,
And
you're right.
if you don't know how to potty train your child, you read a book about it.
Yes,
Done. You
but you
Google it,
learn.
right?
Yes,
And if you don't
yes.
know how to teach your child second grade math, I mean, first of all, that means you didn't learn it in school, which is, might be a kind of a
Ironing.
light bulb there.
Yes,
And then you
yes.
just learn with your child, do it together, model learning. And so that's my hope. I mean, I hope that more people listening to shows like this will start to feel like the choo-choo train. Yes, I
Yes.
can.
Yes. And I'm glad that you're speaking from a teacher's perspective. And it's always nice to have teachers chime in on this. And that's why I use my voice in the manner that I do, because I want people to, I don't use any curriculum. I don't use any kind of station, like, I don't know, formal formatting in homeschooling my kids. My degree doesn't play a part in me
Right,
homeschooling my
exactly.
kids. And that was a defense on the public school sector on the clubhouse conversation, was that the teachers are certified. And I'm just like, well, that's the only thing that means, is that they go to this building and they give them a curriculum, a pacing guide, they give them a teacher workbook. Do all the homeschool parents need teacher workbooks? Like, that would make them certified, in my opinion. Like, because the college part of becoming a teacher does not prepare you for actually teaching. I
Oh no, it's experience that prepares you. And I would
Yes, ma'am.
say what a really exceptional teacher knows how to do is differentiate learning for a large group of students. And meet a child, you have no cultural connection, you have no family connection, but somehow you can zone in on that child you don't know and care about them and differentiate learning for them while you have 30 other children in the same classroom with you.
Exactly.
But as a parent, you don't need to differentiate learning for 30 kids.
No.
You just need to understand your own child and like what makes them tick.
Or
So it's just,
children.
or
Yes.
children, right? Or
Yes.
5 children. And
Yes.
that's very different than being in a big classroom where you have to manage behavior and a lot of people don't want to be there and sitting at desks. And then there's the whole question of what they're learning. I mean,
Yes,
parents are
ma'am.
afraid that their children aren't learning what kids are learning in school, but are they really looking at those standards and what kind of application they have for their children's lives?
Indeed. Oh, see, I love this.
I mean, teachers know best that homeschooling is better. That's the thing. We
That's
know
what
that parents can do it.
Yes, yes. And that's why I really want that narrative to change, as far as, okay, when your child reaches a certain age, it's just like, oh, I have to hand them off to a professional. It's like, oh, I have to hand them off to no. And the
Oh.
thing is, especially now, there's a bunch of teachers who are teaching with like, what's the degree, like a switcher, like degree, what is it? It's a form, I can't even think of it. Career switchers. They
Oh,
do,
okay. Right.
where they only have to go and do like maybe 15, 30 hours of like educational courses, and they can switch over their degree and become a teacher. I know one of the teachers who was teaching across the hall from me, he was teaching AP English, and he had no English formal background. His degree was in film. Okay. And so that's why I was like, y'all always throw out this, certified or professional, or like, just because these teachers have went through college, it just makes them just so profound in teaching. Like, I don't think that that should be a narrative that we keep going. Basically, I want parents to
Absolutely.
know, and that doesn't, like, set you apart from the connection that you have naturally with your child. Like you see them, you've been watching them learn, you've been watching them grow, and you know what best, like,
You know what's
works.
best for them. And I would say, even if there's someone listening who's been thinking about homeschooling, but they still feel like they need a certified teacher for their children, just bring a little curiosity to it. If you think you need a certified teacher, write down what are those qualities that you think that teacher has that can
Mm.
benefit your child. Do you think that you could learn any of those skills? Do they really
Oh.
have those skills? I mean, if you're
Mm.
concerned about your children making friends, go to a homeschool meetup. See for yourself if
Yes.
homeschoolers have friends.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, they do.
A lot of
Just
them.
bring a little curiosity, to those things
Yes.
that feel hard, those hard truths, like, and I think you'll really surprise yourself.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yes, you will surprise yourself, because and that's what it takes, actually getting into the homeschool community, to see, oh, that stuff, like, because if you Google, I think naturally, like, socialization is one of the most
All the
top
time.
hitting
Yeah.
things, as far as like, why would I not homeschool, or what are the cons about homeschooling, and then that be like one of the first things that pop up, and we know how Google works. But
Yeah.
socialization is far from anything that, and I feel like that's that should
That's
be
the
one of the
least
main
of your
reasons
problems,
that
right?
you
I mean,
want.
homeschoolers have so many friends and there's so much more time to play. I mean, some schools are cutting out recess altogether. You're not
Mm,
going to develop a social capacity sitting at a desk all day with a group of kids the same age and a teacher who yells at you. You're going to develop a social capacity through a strong attachment, a secure attachment with your primary caregiver, and being around mixed ages and a diverse group. I mean,
yes, ma'am.
homeschooling is so social in
Yes.
that way. I mean, and the thing is we keep on comparing public school to homeschooling instead of saying, looking at what kind of homeschooling do I want for my child. I mean, if I go to school, there's this particular socialization that's built in, and if I homeschool, I have the freedom to curate my child's social life, my childcare schedule, their academics. So yes, can homeschooling be antisocial? It can. Can school be antisocial? I mean, I was bullied and didn't have a single friend until I went to college. So that can
Mm,
also happen. So
yes,
within
ma'am.
homeschooling, there's so much variance, just as there is within school.
Yes, ma'am. What do you say about that? Because a lot of people argue with, they talk about the indoctrination that goes on in public
Mm.
school, but then they say when you're removing your child from public school, and then you just have them at home with you, then you're pretty much indoctrinating them on your principles and your values and your ideologies, I guess. What do you think of that?
That is a great question. And I think a lot about this because from what I've observed in the homeschooling community, especially the secular homeschooling community, there are mixed ages, there are a lot of diverse groups, people are exposed to different points of view. I mean, it happens that a lot of people who leave school are leaving it because they've been bullied, because of
Mm,
homophobia, because of racism. And so they're coming together in this inclusive community. So I think you can absolutely expose your child to different viewpoints in homeschooling. And then, yes, there was a Nazi homeschooling cult in, I believe, Idaho. That happens
mm,
too, just as there is, I mean, just so many of our schools are just a school to prison pipeline. And
mm,
so it's not an exaggeration. That's a reality. That is all the statistics. Their children, you say, oh, school is, you're going to be exposed to diversity. How are you exposed to diversity when within one neighborhood, the rich kids are going to one public school and the poor kids are going to an incredibly under-resourced school just within steps away from each other? That
yes,
it's not
ma'am.
happening. And so but I've kind of changed my perspective on this a bit. And I think ultimately the answer to that question is it's your child. And parents should be free to educate their child as they see fit. And we should trust parents to make the best possible decision. And some of them are going to do a bad job and some of them are going to do a great job. But I think that overall, that job is going to be much better than you see in a traditional school system because it's coming from a place most of the time of such love.
Yes,
And,
ma'am.
in any system, right, in public school, we have a huge problem with neglect. Our foster care system is atrocious. I mean, as a teacher, I saw abuse and neglect. I reported it. Nothing ever happened. There's also child
Mm,
abuse and neglect in the homeschooling community, and we need to keep collaborating and thinking together on how to protect our children, but it's not homeschooling that's causing that problem, and it's not school that's solving it.
oh, yes. Oh my gosh. You are amazing.
You're amazing. You're bringing out the revolution in me, Jay.
Like, yes. But homeschooling is pretty revolutionary when, people
It
sit down
is.
and think about it. It really is. It's a profound freedom that you really don't understand until you're actually in that community because it could be just as amazing as you create it to be for your home. And like I like how
Absolutely.
you said, like you decide what type of homeschooling you want to do because there's plenty of people who do lesson plans. There's plenty of people who do, have set like itineraries or goals or schedules. I've had plenty of families. I don't know if you got a chance to check out the Homeschool Your Kids app, but I've had
Yes.
families introduce and share like, their reasons of why they're doing it and then talking a little
Right.
bit about how they do it. And I love that. I love seeing all the
Fantastic.
vast variety of ways to homeschool because there's no one way to do it. It really isn't.
There
It's
is
just
no way
about
to
what
do
works
it.
for your family, what works for you and your
Absolutely.
family.
Absolutely. And, I mean, we were both teachers and also build technology. You have an app and
Yes.
I have a platform. And I have thought a lot about these similarities between building technology and homeschooling. Whereas when you're in school, nothing changes. The system is
Mm.
fixed and you never ask for feedback from the person who's supposed to be served by what's
Which is
happening,
the
the child,
kids.
right?
Yes.
In technology, if you want to build a good company, you're constantly changing your approach, checking in with your child, with your family, seeing how it's working, making changes. And that's what's happening in homeschooling. People are sharing different approaches. If it's
Yes.
not working, they can just change it in that second. They can change it as
Yes.
their child grows. And people who are open to that kind of flexibility, I think, tend to be happier and have better results in their homeschooling.
Yes, I love that because I have a lot of parents who will share like if the curriculum's not working, scrap it. Like you don't have to commit to it, you don't have to finish it. Whereas, in a school formal setting, like the teacher ain't scrapping no curriculum. They can go to buy that curriculum. They have to go buy, whatever textbook they have. That's not something like you not in the middle of the school year saying, you know what, this is not working for my students. I'm gonna do something else. Like, no, you don't really have that leeway to do that. And so
No,
homeschooling, on the other hand, you have that freedom to say, okay, well, this isn't working for us, so let us try this, or let us just take a break from the curriculum altogether, and what is it that you want to focus on, and being able to have
absolutely.
those conversations, because classrooms would be so much better if they were smaller. That's why I
Oh my
love the idea of
gosh,
micro schools. What's your
totally.
take on micro schools?
Well, as you know, I had a platform for microschools.
Yes.
I actually wrote the Wikipedia article microschooling back in
Really?
2015 or so. Yes, so I was an early microschool pioneer.
Nice.
And
See, I'm new to it. I'm new to it.
so, since I worked so much with microschools, my opinions are varied. I
Mm,
think that I understand why parents would think of a micro school as a good solution to help their children make friends, to build a community for themselves, to have childcare. I think I have two concerns. One is that I often see micro schools recreating the same thing that's going on at
mm,
school, which is that you still are absconding your authority. Is that the correct use of that word? A big word. You're
I
still
like
giving
it.
away your authority as a parent. You're still not everybody, but some people might be doing it to save time. But you are saying, I think someone else can do this better. Or
Mm,
project-based learning is the solution, or self-directed learning is the solution. The Socratic inquiry approach is the solution. Whereas in homeschooling, you have that opportunity to work one-on-one with your child. So and mastery learning, I mean, there's this famous study I'm always citing from Benjamin Bloom about how one-on-one tutoring has just massive bigger impact than any form of instruction. And so I feel like if a family can still give their child that 1 hour of math tutoring, 1 hour of English language arts, but then fine, like have this micro school for your child to be at. The other thing is that I think one thing that gets overlooked a lot is the attachment between a parent and a child. And in the traditional school system is pretty new. It's 100 years old. And
Mhm.
so I just think there's a lot of value in being able to spend so much time with your family, and that really helps the quality of family life, and it helps the mental health of your child just to spend a lot of time with their parents. And so I think that the more you can incorporate that, the better. So I guess I'm kind of two minds about it. And then also, even though we do have these ESSAs and school choice, there are still a lot of under-resourced families that can't afford to attend these micro
Mm.
schools. And so I feel like that is unfair and in some way contributes to this divide. If a
Mm.
family, isn't fortunate to live in Florida or Arizona or another state that offers school vouchers.
I know. I'm in Arizona, you know.
Oh, there you go. Party down.
Yeah, and I get it. I hear a lot about Arizona when I'm
Yeah,
interviewing people or talking to people from all over. They're always like, Arizona is the place. And
it
I
is the
agree. I feel
place.
like
Yeah.
it's just it's a lot free. It's a lot of freedom that's offered with homeschooling and your kids in Arizona. It really is. It's a good feeling. It's a
Yeah.
great feeling.
Absolutely. And back to the point we were discussing earlier around indoctrination and this fear that people are going to educate their children to be racist or not believe in evolution or just develop these right-wing tendencies, which is my fear. And other people homeschool because they're afraid that their children are going to love themselves and choose whichever sexuality they want. But that is not me. I'm more on I'm afraid of the right-wing ideology. Carrie McDonald, who you probably know, she writes a lot about school choice. She brought up a great point, which is that overall, parenting is getting better through an exchange of information. There's a lot less child abuse
Mm.
than ever before. There's so many positive parenting groups. And so I kind of believe in humankind's evolution and that people are actually getting better through an exchange of information, not through being told what to do by some
Thank you for that.
government
Yes.
body.
Yes,
So
because the conversations are like important conversations are being had. Even talking to one of my students yesterday, he's 21, and just to hear him saying like him and his mom, like they have conversations, like try to heal trauma, trying to
mm,
tap into what happened and why it happened, and then how to go forward from it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing, like
so good.
because I'm pushing 40, and I can still, like, me and my mom still kind of have a little hard time like trying to talk about things from the past, because she's like a get over
Mm.
it type of get over it type of mom, whereas like I'm a talk to, and breaking that cycle of, yeah, we're not just going to move past stuff. Let's talk about it. Let's grow from it. Let's reflect on it, things of that nature. And like you said, there are a lot of information like trauma, childhood trauma, generational curses, things, the terminologies that's being used. It wasn't something that we were gentle parenting, conscious
Absolutely.
parenting. Like there's just so much that's going into parenting now, and it's really dope. I think, like you said,
It's
I see the
dope.
evolution.
I agree. Actually, I think this is semi-related. I think last year I was really at a point where I was just totally broke in credit card debt trying to build this community of homeschoolers. And in December, I won the VEA Bridge grant. So everything changed
Nice.
for me. But I decided that I really wanted to build this company. And so I went and lived with my mother in her 2-bedroom apartment. I
Mm,
can't believe I'm sharing this publicly. It's good. So I went there. We were living in very close quarters for about six
yes.
months. And I was raised by a single mom. I think most of from age 13 to 30, we just fought all the time. I mean, I said
Really.
horrible things to her that like I just didn't like her as a person and all the worst. And when I moved back in with her, well, I mean, she's a wonderful mother, so I probably could have been really rude to her the whole time, and she still would have let me stay. But
uh
I made a conscious decision that I wanted to heal my family,
mm,
and that even this
mm.
family of 2 people was a family, and I drew upon a lot of that wisdom that has come to the forefront of our minds,
Yeah.
nonviolent communication and listening and letting go.
Yeah.
And my mom and I are just so close right now, and we communicate so beautifully. And I've been able to let go of so many things, and having that, loving bond restored, I think is supporting me in other aspects of my life. So it's never too late to heal your
Yeah, no,
family.
it's not. And the healing is what's important. I put big emphasis on, and I'm glad that like on every episode I get to talk, like, someone brings up the healing aspect of it all, is because that's what happens. That's what has to take place in order for
Right.
you to be your best self and provide have your best self for your kids. Like, we be dealing with a lot of stuff as kids and we don't really process it until adults. And then some people process it and they just keep on carrying it. Whereas some people are like, okay, well, that is something I really need to heal from. That's something I need to grow from. I know I still have a lot of wounds that I'm trying to,
Mm,
you know, like, oh, like, all right, let's put some ointment on that. Like, it's time to move on. It's time to go
right.
forward. What's the issue? Like, let's reflect on it. Let's write about it. Let's like whatever. Like I said, it is kind of hard to talk with my mom about certain things, but then that's
Mm,
also a thing with me is like, okay, well, maybe I do just need to move forward. Maybe I do just need to let it go. Like you said that too, let it, like the art of letting it go is a big thing because our parents, just as any parents, as any adults, they had their childhood also. They had their things that they
right.
had to deal with also or not deal with, and they have their wounds. And
Right.
so it takes a lot to step into that healing forefront of, all right, no, I want to be the best version of myself. And so in order for me to do that, I'm going to put in the work. And it is work. Like it's
Yeah,
work.
it is work. And it takes a lot of courage to be the one to decide to change first
Yes,
instead of
ma'am.
expecting the other person to change.
Yes,
How can I
yes.
understand them better? What's my role in this? And coming back to homeschooling, I feel like you see all this addiction among teenagers, and the first thing that any good addiction counselor will do is heal the relationship with the family, because
Mm,
it's a family disease. And there was an article from Stanford about the network ecology of school, and how these huge schools that are not really uniting around education but uniting around sports teams and other kind of values like that, business networking, and these private schools, that really lends itself more to cliques and bullying and mental health problems, whereas smaller communities that have a shared value of something like education tend to be a lot healthier
mm,
communities. And in homeschooling, I do believe that that time you're able to spend with your child cultivating your relationship with them really helps them be mentally healthy, strong people who are not vulnerable to
yes,
addiction in the same
yes.
way that kids who are away from their family all the time are.
Yeah, because I touch on it often, but I used to have students that used to tell me that they talk to me more than they talk to their parents. And that used to break my
Mm,
heart because we didn't even have that much time together. So
for
it's like,
sure.
no, why why,
Yeah.
how can we fix that? But it is a understanding thing, and it is like you do have to put in that work to build that relationship with your kids early on. And it's not necessarily so much on the whole, like I'm the parent, you're the child type of
Right.
aspect. It's like I see you as a person. I know that you're a whole little human. Like I talk to my girls,
Hmm.
I call them little ladies. Like I don't see them
Lovely.
as like little kids. Like they got big
Mini
personalities.
me.
Anyone, yes, anyone comes across them, they know they got some big personalities and they're very
Yeah.
outgoing, they're very opinionated, but I want them to always hold on to that. I don't want them to be quiet. I don't want them
Right.
to be people pleasers, whereas they feel like they can't voice anything or avoid conflict because it may, ruffle this. It's like, no, let's deal with the conflict. What is the issue? Let's talk about it. And so we
Yeah.
talk a lot. Me and my
Great.
girls, oh my gosh, like I they're funny.
That's
They
wonderful.
are
I
funny.
love that. I love that. I
They're
bet you're
funny.
learning so much about yourself too through that.
Do I? Do I? We were at my friend's house like 2 days ago, and she was like, "Look at that mini version of you, like just the hollow voice." And I'm like, I didn't get that voice for though, like how loud her voice is now until I was an adult. Like I was more of a like I was quiet, like anyone tell you, I stayed out the way. I didn't ruffle any feathers. I did a lot of assimilating because I didn't want to like upset anyone. Like that's childhood thing myself won't go too far into that, but I stayed out the way. My oldest, she's 9. Oh, and you're gonna see and hear her.
Okay.
Okay. And she's gonna reiterate things that you said and
Oh,
use it on you. And it's but I like it though. I dig it. I was like, yo,
wonderful.
I wish I was like that as a child. Like
It's
that is
fantastic.
it's needed. It's needed. We have a lot of followers now, and I want leaders. I'm very adamant
Mm.
on raising leaders. Um,
For sure. And I think also these homeschoolers have so much opportunity to interact with adults. I mean, all of these meetups are
mhm. Yeah,
multi-generational, and it's just they're just a different kind of person.
yeah,
They're
they
really
are.
able to express their ideas, and it's wonderful. And I think, and I definitely don't want to knock anyone who sends their child to school. It can
No, we're
be an
never doing that.
enormous sacrifice to homeschool, and people do it. I mean, single moms who are on welfare do it. It is possible to make it work, but it's
Yes,
also a
ma'am.
privilege. Even your privilege might be that you have broken through your psychological preconceptions, and that's a privilege to have had that mental health breakthrough. But I will say, when you send your child to school from, I mean, some of these families are getting up at 5 in the morning to be bussed for 3 hours, but it's 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Maybe there's aftercare afterwards. And so you only have 2 or 3 hours a day when you're both the most stressed and tired to spend
Mhm.
time together, catch each other up on each other's days, because you're leading completely separate lives.
Yes.
And that is not going to be the best time to spend together when you're tired after the day is done. And then you have the weekend, everyone's exhausted from their job and from school. But in homeschooling, you have a much more fluid relationship where you're spending time together when you're most energized and happy and
Yes.
able to connect. So that's really great for a relationship.
Yes, ma'am. Like my oldest, she was like, "You don't spend all day with us." And I'm like, "I do." She said, "No, you get up at like 5:30 and we don't get up to like 8:30, 9 o'clock." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Yeah, like that's that's intentional. Like I need that time. Like it's crazy. I have to
Right.
get up before the sun
Please
does
sleep
in
in
order for
as much
me.
as possible.
What do I like? I don't tiptoed and everything. Like, please sleep in. I'm always happy when they go past 9. Like, there's
Right.
no wake up calls going on over here.
Yes.
Understand? I'm
Wow.
definitely, but in her mind, because I tell people like I'm with them all day. I am. But it's not a bad thing. It isn't. Because I'm not one of those hover moms. Like I'm not a
Right.
like it's like a hey, go in that bucket, find something to do. Like, oh, you want me to give you something to do? Like, and they'll
I
be
love
like,
it.
no, like, no. But we
It's
play a lot of
good.
games. Our homeschool life is, like I said, it's really lax, it's really freestyle, but we do a lot of
Wonderful.
games, a lot of games. I stay in a thrift store, tell homeschool families, like, you don't know where to start, go to the thrift store. Go
Love
to the
it.
thrift store. I love thrift stores.
It's so great.
But it's easy as you want it to
Mhm.
be. It really
Right.
is.
Right.
It could be as intense as you want it to be because some of us are walking around little mini geniuses that are like, on a scholar level. I know I interviewed Danielle who had her lovely, I think he was like 7 and he was already doing like marine biology stuff or like about on algebra 2 type deal. And I'm like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah, well, I mean, I will
not there.
say, if you're happy and your child is happy with that
Yeah.
situation, good for you.
Yes.
But my background is in being a high-end tutor for the most elite of the elite. And
Mm,
I do not think that children need 6 or 7 hours a day to fill their full potential, no matter
no,
how
ma'am.
gifted they are. And
Yeah.
it's similar to, the book, The 4 Hour Work Week. I mean, there's only a few hours a day that you're going to be really focused and learning. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes when a parent feels like their 7-year-old needs to learn organic chemistry, or that packing more hours or more experienced teachers into the mix is going to make their child smarter in some ways, I think that they are deluding themselves. And
Mm,
what's really going to help a child reach their full potential and become a leader or the next Albert Einstein is being able to follow their interests with passion
yes,
and really follow that natural desire that they have, that we're born with, to learn. That is what's going to help your child grow into the smartest, most capable person they can, not 7 hours of private tutoring. And
of
that's
course.
just something to know.
Yes, and that's big emphasis on you do not have to sit your children down for 7 hours to feel like they are going to be fulfilled. Because people feel like, because public school is as long as it is, that learning is just taking place during that whole time. It's not. Like, it's
It's
not.
not. It's not. That's not what's going to get your child into MIT. If that's what's important to you, it's going to
Yeah.
be that they're self-directed and they know what
Yes.
they care about.
Yes, I always like to refer back to Sky. I did an interview with Sky, who was unschooled her whole life, never had any kind of formal sit down, no type of formal like lessons or anything. And she's in medical school now. And I think that's just the dopest thing. And I told her, you're a whole poster child for like
Right.
just be like, let's just be, it's okay, like let your child just
Exactly.
be, because like you said, the natural learning, like natural instinct of wanting to learn more is something that children are born with. Like I was observing a 6-month-old baby the other day and just seeing like, her just, looking and watching, especially watching my girls, and just like, I'm sure she's just thinking like, I want to get on the floor and do that stuff. Like, I want to get down. Like, and she's even like
Absolutely.
pulling up and everything else, because it is a natural thing to want to do more, want to like, hey, let me test myself. Like, what can I do?
Sure.
I
It's
think I can stand up right
intense.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
They're
but you
so
can't.
curious about every single thing. That's what you want
Yes.
to, the flame you want to nourish.
You
And
want to keep that flame. Yes.
absolutely. And the thing is, I mean, we're of course we're all afraid of, failing our child. And when a child takes a test and they're at the 99th percentile, of course that's going to feel great to everybody, even if you don't believe in standardized tests. But you have to be careful because the skills that children need to thrive in the 21st century are not, memorizing information. It's having the ability to push past frustration, to change careers multiple times in a lifetime, to learn the new technology that doesn't even exist today.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so I think that, it's a big mistake to try to pack your child's mind with as much information as you can, because
Academics.
it's a waste of time, truly. And it's not going to help them be the best learner that they can be.
Yes, ma'am. No, I love that you said that, because
Yeah,
that
and then
is,
that also shouldn't be the goal at all. I mean, like, I'm just saying because I
because
do
we're
work a
so
lot
much
with
more.
these
Yes.
parents, but like leave a, we have one life to relish and appreciate. It's so precious. And, we just want to enjoy every single moment of that. That's what's most
Yes.
important,
Our
I think.
purpose is not a book.
Yeah.
Our purpose is not to master uh, 2 billion vocabulary words.
10 languages. I mean, if that's what
Yes.
makes you happy, go for it. But
Indeed, because there are like, your fulfillment is your fulfillment and your walk is your walk. And that's what everyone needs to understand wholeheartedly. Like, we're individuals. I put an emphasis
absolutely.
on that all the time. We are individuals. What works for that person may not work for that person. What is their desire may not be the other person's desire. And that is fine.
For
Like, that's
sure.
okay, because we're all an important piece to this lovely puzzle we have going on here, and you have to play your part and you have to
You
find your
do.
purpose, walk in your purpose, and know yourself and love yourself. Like,
Absolutely.
I
You
love
have to
this.
love yourself.
That's a
Any
big,
problems start with self-love.
yes, it really does. And like, just to see, because I used to teach seniors, and just like seeing that at the end of the road and seeing how depleted some of them were, most of them were,
Mm,
just seeing like, just their natural like light just being so dim. And they're about to
yeah.
enter into like, should be the best part of everything, because now you have control over where you're walking. But it's like they're afraid to go out there. They're
Mm,
afraid of what's next. They're afraid to embark because of all they've experienced in the past 12, 13 years in the public school
That's
system,
it.
of being
Yeah.
told that you're not learning, oh, you don't learn like everyone else, so something's wrong with you. Let me place this label on you. Oh, you didn't score high enough on this test, so you're in this category. And like, I tell people, like, think about how much emphasis are put on grades when a child is in the public school system. And when you talk to a child, like, the first thing a person or an adult does is ask them how they're doing in school. Like,
Yeah.
how are you doing in school? Oh, and then that child will say, oh, well, I'm an AB student, or I'm an honor roll student, or, things, and that becomes their identity. Like, that,
Completely.
don't like that.
It's so
Don't like that.
uncomfortable. And I remember when I graduated, or my senior year of high school, I was terrified to see any adult because I knew they would ask me where I'd been accepted to college or where I was going to college. And I didn't know. I wasn't very happy with the outcome. And it was just the worst possible thing, unless you're
See?
going to Harvard. And then that's kind of a boring conversation. It's like, I'm going to Harvard, I'm going to Caltech, I'm going to MIT. Oh, you're so
Right,
great.
right,
I don't know where
right.
I'm going. Conversation stopper. It
I
was just the worst.
know.
It was the worst. But you don't have any other context for their lives. Like, what are you passionate about? What projects are you doing? Any of
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that's what I want us to get back to. Like, excluding the academics. The academics will always be there. The books will always be there. All the things, like, you could test kids over 100 times over, whatever that, all that stuff's always going to be there. But what the light that they were born with, what they came here with, what they,
Yes.
what their purpose for, like what that passion is, that's early on. And it's just, I feel like it just gets drained from them because no one asks them about it anymore. It's just
Sure.
a quick, like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then we give them the list of careers and, ask them to pick from that, basically. Not,
For
I don't
sure.
know. It's weird.
Yeah. And it's a self fulfilling prophecy because the way the school system works is we're killing that creativity by saying this
Mm,
is what you're supposed to learn. And so then
yes.
adults, they've lost a lot of their curiosity. I mean, if you're genuinely
Mm,
curious about a person, I mean, I'm not saying, what's your job? How many brothers and sisters do you have? I'm curious about, how you're educating your children, what you're excited about, when do you feel burnt out? What's the most exciting next project you're working on? What's been
yeah.
challenging? How can I be helpful? Real
Yeah.
questions. I have a real desire to learn. And a lot of people have lost that natural desire to learn,
Yes,
which is really
ma'am.
sad.
It is. It really is. But with, like you said, evolution and the things that are coming around, you just hope that more and more step out of that comfort zone, because it is about a comfort zone, because it's
For
something
sure.
that,
Yeah, it's what
I,
you're used to.
it is what you're used to.
But I
And
think we all crave aliveness. And so
mm,
if you go to a person and say, "Do you feel fully alive? Do you feel happy? Do you want to feel that way?" Most people will say yes. They do want
mm,
that. We crave that. And so that's where the change can start to happen.
I know. I always wonder how the conversation would be if you start with that question. Are you happy? Like, if you come across a person or you talk to a friend that you haven't talked to in a while, and you just start with that question, well, are you happy? And
Mm,
you don't know where that conversation is going to lead, and it may
right.
even shock them because it's like, nobody's ever asked me that.
That's true. It's true.
Wait a minute.
How about you, Jay? Are you happy today?
I am. I feel good. I
Nice.
even woke up and like playing my music. I paused it right when you came in, but
Nice.
like I feel good. I feel good today. I do. I, like I said, I've been reconnecting with a lot of former students, so that's always a great vibe.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but I love the life that we're able to live. I
Me
really
too.
do. And it really just took me stepping out of my comfort zone. I was just catching up with a friend Friday, and I told her, like, if the shutdown hadn't happened, because her husband is he's a athletic director. He's the department chair of English, and he's the team lead. He does a lot of things for, and he's the basketball coach. Like, he's really still deeply immersed in the school system. And we were just talking about the time that he doesn't have. They
Mm.
just had their first child, and she's 6 months, and
Oh,
it's just like, we were just talking about that, and I was just like, if the shutdown hadn't happened, I would have still been there too, because it just keeps you
Mm,
there because you want to do so much. There's so much to be
right.
done. And then the
So much.
connections and relationships you build with the kids. I said I used to hear
Mm.
the kids always in the hallways, huh? I'm gonna have Miss Carter next year. I can't wait to have your class next year. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
Oh, you can't. Like the kids, they just rule our
Right.
lives.
And so when I was at home, I didn't get to hear that anymore. With no anticipation of my,
Mm,
people having my class. And so it's just like, okay, this is it. I'm done. Like I'm stepping out. I'm stepping down. Look, and
absolutely.
I'm gonna just, I don't know what I'm doing, but we're gonna go. And I wanted to homeschool my kids. Like I tell people before I had kids,
Mm,
that was my thing. I'm going to homeschool my kids. And that was because, like you, I subbed for 8 years, and
right.
I've been up and through and all around the school in general, from in school suspension to the front office to all the classes, all grade levels, all that stuff. And I used to always tell people, I'm homeschooling my kids. Quick. I used to say that quick before
Completely.
having kids. So understand that your voice is needed no matter if you have kids or not. You've been there. You know what is
You've been to
there.
school. You know what it's
Yes.
like. Yes. I mean,
Yes. No.
there's so many layers in what you've said. And one of the first things that came to me is how often, unfortunately, sometimes caregivers are taken advantage of because their connection to the child is so
Yes.
deep. And a lot of the people who are nannies happen to be immigrants and others who
Mm-hmm.
can't get a job anywhere else, and they're underpaid and they're asked to do things like, do the laundry and really treated poorly, sometimes, not all the cases. And so I think
Yeah.
that as parents, we really need to be sensitive to how we treat our teachers and our caregivers by
Of
acknowledging
course.
how deep that relationship they have with their our child is, and
Yeah.
how hard it is to turn away from that, even if you yourself are being mistreated. So
Yes,
that's one
ma'am.
thing that I want to give voice to. And then, I mean, the second thing is just our school system was an experiment. And
Mm.
about 100 years ago, someone said, let's try a school system. Maybe this will be better than
Yes.
homeschooling. But before that, we homeschooled, and it's a
Thank
failed
you.
experiment. It didn't work. It doesn't make sense not to learn during the summer, or for everyone to learn in the same way at the same time, no matter what
Mm.
their background or experience. And you talk about high school seniors. I just saw this. So I don't know if you're familiar with the MAP growth test, but it basically just shows academic growth across the core
Mm.
subjects. And only the top 1% of scorers have any growth at all. And that's just a few
Mm.
points. If you're in the 50th percentile, that's zero learning from ninth through 12th
Mm.
grade. Zero.
Because you're
That's
basically
not.
learning the same thing over and over anyway. So it's like the same things being introduced to you year after year, with just like a little bit more added to, but it's really is the same thing as for, Arthur's purpose, nouns, verbs, adjectives. I was speaking about noun, verb, adjectives with my seniors. Okay. So understand like that. And that's something
Yeah,
from elementary school. So I can definitely understand that. Definitely understand that. That's why I said the waste of time. And I don't like
right.
to say it like that, but it is.
It
It's
is
a
a waste
lot
of
of
time.
time that is
We're
put 13
we're wasting
years.
children's time, and we're gaslighting by saying you have to do this in
Yes,
order
in
to
order to
learn and be
be
successful,
successful.
and they
Yes.
learn nothing. And that, and it's just, or they do really well and think that life is like that. I was an A
Mm,
student. I always turned in my perfect paper. And then I thought, when I built my first company, oh, all I have to do is, suck up to my teacher a little bit and work harder than anybody else, and I'm good to go.
yes.
And actually, building a company is a lot more about failure and experimentation and knowing how to
Yes.
connect to community. I mean, these kind of conversations are so energizing and important because we're
Yeah.
both living the struggle, and we're here and
Yes.
we're sharing our hearts and connecting, and that's what
Yes.
energizes me. So I just feel like it's a lot worse than people realize. And when this is why teachers are homeschooling their children. It's not because we
Yes.
think we can do it better ourselves because we're teachers. It's because we know that when children learn at their own pace with the right curriculum continually, and they're excited about what they're learning, they're going to learn astronomically better than
Yes,
when they're
ma'am.
sitting listening to a lecture trying to learn standards that have been decided by some corporation. And it's just obvious when you're in the classroom. It's not because we're better at it. We just know that this model works better for children.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I love anytime I get a former teacher up here. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Your voice is so important. So, so very important. So
Thank you.
what's three things that you would tell a homeschooling family?
Number one, connect with the community, because
Mm,
you're going to feel burnt out in a certain point, and the balm of Gilead for that is having a community. You can start with an online community,
mm,
and even better is a local community. Just go to that meetup. That is the biggest thing. Number two, I would say, there's different levels of introversion and extroversion among people, but I would say almost everyone needs at least 3 hours to themselves every
mm,
week. And if you don't have a partner, or your partner isn't willing to do that, or you can't afford a babysitter, there's almost always another parent who's happy to swap with you. So and it doesn't have to be a big vacation. Sometimes people are like, I just need some time to myself. I need to go away for a week. Just go to the library for 3 hours, go on the Facebook group, say, hey, would someone swap with me? That time to yourself is so important. So community, time to yourself. And I would say perhaps getting clear on your goals, because it's really easy to try to recreate school at home. And that's where I
mm.
see people really burning out and not being effective in their homeschooling, is when they think they have to teach school skills in a school way in a home environment. So if you really start to think deeply about, what do I want for my child? Do I want them to be happy? Do I want them to know, math and reading? And just really start there, I think you're going to have a lot better experience. And then having the community can help you curate that education and get clear on those goals.
Ma'am, I love that. And teacher kids can be found.
Yes. So there's the Teach Your Kids podcast. So you go to Apple and find Teach Your Kids, and I'll give you the link. And we're also on all the social media channels. So you can find us on Instagram and Twitter. But I would say, yeah, the best thing is just to start with the Apple podcast and go from there.
You have a website?
We do have a website. So you can find us at modulo.app. It's
Okay.
modulo.app, and all of the links are there as well.
Yes, all the links will be in the
Yes.
bio also, so you'll
Yes.
be able to tap
We'll
into.
put everything there.
Yes, yes. I appreciate you so much. This has
Oh,
been an
same.
amazing conversation. I really,
So
really love
good.
this. Yes.
So good.
You
Well,
heard it. Like, believe in yourself, believe in yourself, believe in yourself. That's
yes,
where it
really.
starts. Like you said, Manisha, at the very beginning, confidence is what it's all about. Once parents grasp the whole and get strongly built up in believing in themselves and confidently walking in this home learning journey, then everything just falls in place. It
Yes,
really
it's
does.
true. And take it from a teacher, you really are the person who's most qualified to teach your kids, especially
I
if you're taking the
appreciate
time to
that so
listen to this
much.
podcast today. I mean, you
Right?
definitely fall into that category of
That's what I'm
being
saying. You're
a
already
loving,
there.
curious. You're loving and you're curious. That's
You
all you
putting in
need.
the work. You're doing
Mm-hmm.
it. You like you're
Exactly.
you're stepping out. You're doing your research. Understand that whatever you're looking for, it can be found. You do not have to know it all. Believe me, you do not have to know it all. I do
No.
not know a lot.
And no one does. So you can
Right?
be anyone who says they know it
But
all
I can
knows the
find,
least.
right? I can
Right.
find answers.
Yep.
Okay. And that's what it's all about, the research. And Manisha is doing most of it for you. So
There you
please tap into, yeah, tap
go.
into her network and learn from her, because
Mm-hmm.
we want everyone to succeed. And like this is definitely the game changer. And I love it. I love it for everyone. Cause
Yay. Oh, Jay, I'm so
yeah.
full of joy meeting you.
Yes.
I can't wait to continue to collaborate.
Of
And
course, because we're
it's
gonna be
so
in New York
good.
soon, but we're gonna talk about that in a minute.
Woo. All right.
But
It's going to
yes.
happen.
All right.
All
So
right.
thank you. And always
Thank you
remember
so
to
much.
homeschool your kids.
Homeschool your kids.